Worry is one of the most common experiences in human life, yet it is also one of the most misunderstood. We often believe that worry is a tool, a mechanism that helps us prepare for the future or protect ourselves from harm. We think that by worrying, we are being responsible, being careful, being smart. Yet, in truth, worry is not a tool at all. It is a mental trap. It is a habit of the mind that distorts reality, pulling us away from what is and planting us firmly in a world of imagined fears. Every time we worry, we create scenarios in our minds that may never exist. We rehearse catastrophes that are unlikely, often impossible, yet we act as if they are inevitable. This is the subtle but persistent illusion of worry. It convinces us that the future is certain, that our thoughts can predict reality, and that by thinking endlessly about what might go wrong, we somehow gain control over life. The first step in seeing worry for what it truly is, rather than what it pretends to be, is to recognize that worry is not real. It is a projection of the mind, an echo of fear, a shadow cast by uncertainty. When you are worried, you are not engaging with the present moment. You are not responding to what is. You are responding to what might be, and often, what might be is far removed from what actually will be. The mind has a remarkable ability to imagine endless possibilities, and in its imagination, it does not know moderation. It can spiral into extreme outcomes, imagining losses, failures, disappointments, and dangers with vivid clarity. You might find yourself lying awake at night, thinking of 1,000 things that could go wrong tomorrow, next week, or next year, and yet, when those days come, most of those imagined scenarios never materialize. Worry is therefore an unnecessary consumption of energy. It pulls your attention away from action and from presence, and it convinces you that thinking is equivalent to doing. But life does not respond to thinking alone. Life responds to engagement, to attention, to awareness. Worrying gives the illusion of preparation while simultaneously eroding your ability to act effectively. When your mind is consumed with imagined dangers, you are less able to notice what is actually in front of you. You may become reactive instead of proactive, tense instead of calm, confused instead of clear. The second truth about worry is that it multiplies problems rather than solving them. When we worry, we create layers of mental tension that overlay the challenges we face. A small difficulty becomes a mountain, a minor setback becomes an endless obstacle. A simple decision becomes paralyzing. Worry is addictive because it makes the mind feel busy, important, and alert, yet it is a false kind of engagement. True engagement requires clarity, presence, and understanding. Worry clouds the mind, obscures perception, and makes it difficult to see the opportunities that exist within challenges. It is important to understand that worry thrives in uncertainty. It is the mind's response to not knowing, to fearing loss, to fearing failure, to fearing the unknown. Yet uncertainty is the nature of life itself. Life is always uncertain. No one can predict the exact way events will unfold. By worrying, we attempt to create certainty where none exists, and in doing so, we create suffering. The paradox is that the more we try to control the future through worry, the less control we actually have. The mind becomes like a bird trapped in a cage it built itself. The walls of fear are invisible, yet they constrain every thought, every choice, and every step. Recognizing worry as a mental trap also allows us to see its impermanence. Worry is not a permanent state, it is a habit, a pattern of thought that arises and passes away. You can observe worry without being consumed by it. You can notice the way your mind creates what-ifs and maybes, and acknowledge them without giving them power. When you see worry for what it is, a projection, a story, a mental distortion, you begin to separate yourself from it. You begin to realize that your thoughts are not the same as reality. Thoughts are tools, they can be useful, but they can also deceive. In the practice of observing worry, one begins to notice the physical impact it has as well. Worry tightens the chest, quickens the heartbeat, and clouds the stomach. It creates tension in the body as if the imagined threats are real. Yet, just as the threats are imagined, so too is the tension optional. By bringing awareness to the body, by breathing, by grounding yourself in the present moment, you can reduce the hold that worry has over your life. Worry cannot exist in the same space as awareness. Worry also isolates us from life. When we are consumed by imagined fears, we withdraw from the people and experiences around us. We are less present with our loved ones, less attentive at work, less capable of noticing the subtle beauty in daily life. Worry transforms life into a rehearsal for disaster rather than an engagement with reality. And yet, when we release worry, even partially, we notice the freedom it brings. Life begins to feel lighter, our energy returns, and we find the courage to face challenges with clarity rather than tension. To stop worrying does not mean to ignore problems. It does not mean to become passive or careless. It means to distinguish between what is real and what is imagined, between what can be addressed and what cannot, and between presence and projection. When you see worry as a mental trap, you create space for action, clarity, and peace. You learn to respond to life from a place of wisdom, not fear, and to engage with what is rather than what might never be. Acceptance is one of the simplest yet most profound practices in life, yet it is often the hardest to embody. From an early age, we are taught to fight, to control, to fix, and to resist what we do not like or what we fear. Society praises those who struggle, who conquer, who refuse to yield. In many ways, resistance feels noble. It gives the impression that we are strong, that we are active participants in our destiny, and that we are refusing to be passive in the face of difficulty. Yet resistance, when it becomes habitual, creates tension, suffering, and blindness. The harder we push against what is, the more we entangle ourselves in struggle. Acceptance, on the other hand, does not mean giving up, surrendering, or being weak. True acceptance is an active engagement with life, a clarity of perception that allows us to see what is happening without distortion, and a willingness to meet reality as it unfolds. Resistance begins with judgment. We resist situations, people, and feelings that do not match our expectations. We resist disappointment, change, uncertainty, and even ourselves. We want life to bend to our desires rather than understanding that life has its own flow. When we resist, we are caught in a constant battle, a silent war with the very fabric of existence. We push, we pull, we struggle, and in doing so, we exhaust our energy and cloud our judgment. Resistance is often unconscious. We do not even realize how much of our mental and emotional energy is spent trying to deny or alter reality. We say to ourselves, "This should not be happening. I cannot accept this. It is unfair." And with each thought, we tighten our grip, increasing the friction between ourselves and life. Acceptance, by contrast, is not passive. It is not the same as resignation or indifference. Acceptance is the recognition of reality as it is, without unnecessary commentary or resistance. It is the acknowledgement that life unfolds in ways we cannot always control. When we accept, we open our awareness to the present moment. We see things clearly, without the distortions of fear, anger, or frustration. This clarity is the foundation of wisdom. When the mind is free from resistance, it can respond to life with insight rather than reaction. Acceptance allows us to act effectively, because action taken from clarity is far more precise and aligned than action taken from struggle or denial. Many people mistake acceptance for weakness because it requires letting go of the compulsion to control. It requires humility to admit that we cannot direct every circumstance according to our desires. It requires courage to face life without the armor of constant resistance. Yet there is immense strength in acceptance. It is strength born of peace, not conflict. When we accept, we conserve energy that would otherwise be wasted in fighting what is inevitable. We become like water flowing around obstacles instead of crashing against them fruitlessly. We begin to understand that control is an illusion, and that by embracing life rather than resisting it, we create room for harmony, creativity, and insight. Acceptance also transforms our emotional experience. Resistance generates tension, anxiety, frustration, and disappointment. Every time we resist, we increase the weight on our hearts and minds. When we accept, the mind relaxes, the body eases, and the heart finds calm. This does not mean that challenges disappear, but it does mean that we meet challenges with a sense of balance. The storm may rage, but we are no longer tossed violently by it. We navigate with presence, discernment, and composure. Acceptance allows us to distinguish between what we can influence and what we cannot. Energy that would have been wasted in futile struggle is now available for action, creativity, and understanding. In life, everything is impermanent. Circumstances, emotions, people, and even our own thoughts are constantly changing. Resistance often arises from clinging to what is fleeting, from wishing for permanence in an impermanent world. Acceptance allows us to embrace change without suffering unnecessarily. It helps us to witness life's fluctuations without being consumed by them. This does not mean we do not act or set boundaries. Rather, it means we act with awareness, from a place of clarity and presence rather than reaction and attachment. Acceptance allows us to see the lessons, opportunities, and hidden beauty in every situation, even when events appear harsh or unfair at first glance. Acceptance also fosters compassion and understanding. When we resist others, we create separation, judgment, and conflict. When we accept, we open space for empathy, patience, and connection. We begin to recognize that everyone, including ourselves, is navigating life with their own fears, limitations, and attachments. Acceptance dissolves the rigid boundaries of judgment and opens the heart to the flow of life. It allows us to respond with clarity rather than ego, with love rather than irritation, and with insight rather than confusion. The practice of acceptance begins with mindfulness, with observing reality as it is rather than how we wish it to be. It begins with small moments, noticing the breath, feeling the body, acknowledging the sensations of life without resistance. Over time, this awareness extends to larger situations, relationships, work, health, and the uncontrollable events of life. Acceptance is not a single act, it is a continuous practice, a constant choice to see reality clearly and respond appropriately. Through this practice, resistance gradually loosens its grip and life begins to move with greater ease, clarity, and flow. The present moment is often overlooked, yet it is the only place where life truly exists. From the moment we wake until the moment we sleep, the mind is constantly traveling, dwelling on the past or imagining the future. We replay mistakes, regrets, and failures, analyzing every word, every decision, every event, as if reliving them can somehow change what has already passed. At the same time, we imagine scenarios that have not yet arrived, worrying about what might happen, anticipating challenges, fearing loss, or craving outcomes that may never materialize. In this constant movement, we miss the only reality that is tangible, the only moment in which we have the ability to act, to feel, to breathe, and to exist fully. The present moment, when embraced with awareness, holds immense power. It is the doorway to clarity, freedom, and transformation. One of the greatest misconceptions of life is that the future holds the answers. We believe that if we plan enough, prepare enough, or predict enough, we can secure happiness, success, or peace. Yet the truth is that the future is always uncertain. No amount of mental effort can guarantee outcomes. And the more we chase after imagined certainty, the more we overlook what is already here. The present moment is not something to be postponed or ignored. It is the only canvas upon which life paints its truths. Every thought, every choice, every action exists in the present. The past is memory and the future is imagination. But life unfolds in the space of now. The power of the present lies in its immediacy and its potential to transform our experience if only we become aware of it. Being present is not simply noticing the external world. It is a deep engagement with one's own consciousness. It is observing thoughts without being consumed by them, feeling emotions without being trapped in their sway, and witnessing sensations without judgment. To live in the present is to see clearly, to understand the impermanence of all things, and to recognize that each moment offers an opportunity to respond rather than react. When we are present, we are no longer driven by fear of what was or anxiety about what might be. We act from awareness, not from unconscious habit. This awareness is not passive, it is active, vibrant, and alive. It allows us to step into life with precision, clarity, and courage. The mind often resists the present because it is unpredictable and unstructured. We crave control, yet the present moment is ever changing. Thoughts arise without warning, emotions shift, circumstances fluctuate, and the world moves independently of our desires. Resistance arises when we wish the present were different, when we cling to our expectations or resent reality for not matching our desires. But the present is always perfect in its own way. It simply is. By resisting it, we create suffering. By accepting it, we open ourselves to the natural flow of life, allowing energy, insight, and clarity to emerge. To harness the power of the present, one must first let go of attachment to outcomes and allow life to unfold moment by moment. The present moment also holds the power of attention. Where attention goes, energy flows. When we focus on the now, we invest our mental and emotional resources in what truly matters. We are able to notice details we would otherwise miss, respond to challenges with clarity, and cultivate deep experiences with the people and situations around us. Distraction and rumination pull us away from this power, scattering our energy across imaginary landscapes and leaving little room for genuine engagement. the mind becomes fragmented and the quality of our life diminishes. Presence, however, concentrates attention, sharpens perception, and aligns thought with action. It is the source of creativity, insight, and wisdom because it allows us to interact with reality as it truly is, not as we imagine it to be. Another aspect of the power of the present is that it dissolves fear. Fear is almost always a projection into the future, a worry about what might happen or what could go wrong. Anxiety arises from imagining threats that have not yet occurred, and regret arises from replaying past mistakes. Both rob us of the vitality of the now. When we immerse ourselves in the present moment, fear loses its grip. We realize that the threats we imagined are often exaggerations of the mind, and that life, when faced with clarity and awareness, can be navigated with calm, intelligence, and grace. The present moment becomes a sanctuary where the mind can rest, the heart can soften, and the spirit can engage fully with life. Practicing presence requires mindfulness and attention to simplicity. It begins with noticing the breath, feeling the body, or observing the environment without judgment. It continues in the small acts of daily life, the taste of food, the sound of a conversation, the sensation of walking, the warmth of sunlight on the skin. Each moment carries the potential for awakening, insight, and transformation. By grounding ourselves in these experiences, we learn to break free from the tyranny of past regrets and future anxieties. We reclaim the energy that was wasted in distraction and redirect it toward living fully, responding wisely, and embracing the richness of existence as it is. The power of the present also manifests in relationships and communication. When we are fully present with another person, we listen deeply, respond authentically, and connect at a level that is not possible when the mind is elsewhere. We notice the subtleties of expression, the emotions behind words, and the shared humanity in interaction. Presence allows us to cultivate empathy, compassion, and understanding because we are no longer distracted by inner narratives or projected fears. We are able to meet life and people directly, fully, and openly, which in turn creates harmony and alignment in every aspect of our being. To live in the present moment is to live in reality, in clarity, and in power. It is to release the illusions of past and future and to engage fully with life as it unfolds, to notice, to feel, to act, and to respond with wisdom and energy. Anxiety is one of the most subtle and persistent obstacles in life. It often disguises itself as responsibility, preparation, or foresight, convincing us that by worrying, overthinking, or feeling tense, we are somehow preparing for the challenges ahead. Yet anxiety, no matter how justified it feels, is a form of mental energy misdirected. It occupies the mind, clouding perception and immobilizing action. The irony is that most of the situations we worry about never manifest in the ways we fear, and even when challenges arise, anxiety rarely contributes to their resolution. Action, not anxiety, is the path that leads to clarity, growth, and meaningful progress. When we replace anxious energy with deliberate action, we begin to transform our lives from a state of fear to a state of effectiveness, presence, and empowerment. Anxiety thrives in uncertainty, in the gap between desire and reality. We want things to be a certain way, and when they are not, the mind begins to churn with fear, doubt, and imagined catastrophes. Every what if becomes a mental spiral, pulling us further away from practical solutions and toward imagined disaster. The danger of anxiety is not that it warns us of real threats, but that it confuses imagination with reality. We begin to treat shadows as if they were solid, to prepare endlessly for possibilities that may never arrive, and to allow fear to dictate our choices. In doing so, we paradoxically reduce our capacity to act effectively when action is truly needed. Action, by contrast, is grounded in reality. It is rooted in the present moment, informed by observation, and guided by clear intention. When we act, we move out of the paralysis of fear and into the clarity of purpose. Action transforms energy from passive worry into productive effort. Every small step taken is a reclamation of power from the mind that was previously consumed by anxiety. Even when results are uncertain, the act of moving forward generates confidence, insight, and momentum that anxiety alone could never provide. Action breaks the cycle of overthinking and releases the mind from the trap of imagined outcomes. One of the reasons anxiety feels so compelling is that it creates the illusion of preparation. We convince ourselves that by worrying, imagining worst-case scenarios, or obsessing over details, we are somehow protecting ourselves. Yet in reality, anxiety rarely prepares us. It does not sharpen perception or increase resilience. It dulls the mind, clouds judgment, and drains energy. Action, however, is genuine preparation. It requires discernment, awareness, and courage. It demands presence and clarity rather than distraction and fear. By acting deliberately, we confront challenges directly, learn from experience, and adjust with intelligence rather than panic. Each action taken, no matter how small, provides feedback and insight that anxious thinking can never produce. Another aspect of replacing anxiety with action is the shift in focus. Anxiety is self-centered. It revolves around fear of loss, failure, or inadequacy. Action, on the other hand, redirects attention outward towards solutions, opportunities, and engagement with reality. When we focus on what we can do rather than what might go wrong, we reclaim our energy, our agency, and our clarity. This shift is liberating because it moves us from a reactive state dominated by imagined threats to a proactive state guided by awareness and intention. Anxiety keeps the mind trapped in loops of speculation, while action opens doors of possibility, growth, and discovery. Action also teaches resilience. Anxiety amplifies perceived obstacles, magnifies challenges, and exaggerates threats. When we respond with action, we confront difficulties directly, learn from mistakes, and adapt to circumstances. Each step forward, even imperfect or hesitant, reinforces our ability to navigate uncertainty and to face future challenges with confidence. Action demonstrates to the mind that reality is not as threatening as imagined, and that capability and resourcefulness emerge when we engage rather than withdraw. Over time, this pattern strengthens both courage and clarity, reducing the hold of anxiety and replacing it with practical empowerment. The practice of choosing action over anxiety is not about blind optimism or ignoring risks. It is about distinguishing between what is imagined and what is real, between what can be influenced and what cannot, and between thinking that immobilizes and thinking that informs. It is about using awareness as a compass, judgment as a guide, and movement as a form of mastery. Even small, deliberate actions, responding to a task, communicating clearly, taking care of the body, organizing thoughts, have the cumulative effect of transforming anxiety into momentum. Every deliberate act is a step away from fear and toward mastery over one's own mind and circumstances. Furthermore, action grounded in presence diminishes the destructive power of regret. Anxiety often ties the mind to what might happen, while regret ties it to what already happened. Both occupy the mind with energy that cannot change reality. Action, however, focuses on the now, converting attention into tangible results. By acting, we engage with life directly rather than with imagined consequences. We find that even small progress generates satisfaction, insight, and confidence, which are the antidotes to the paralysis of worry. Each deliberate movement creates clarity, restores focus, and channels energy in productive directions. When we replace anxiety with action, life begins to flow with less friction. The mind is no longer trapped in endless loops of what if, and energy is available to respond to challenges with precision, calm, and confidence. Action transforms fear into mastery, inaction into growth, and confusion into insight. The process is gradual, requiring mindfulness, awareness, and courage, yet the impact is profound. Action becomes not just a response to circumstances, but a way of engaging with life itself, a practice of presence, clarity, and empowerment. Detachment is often misunderstood. Many believe that to detach is to withdraw, to become indifferent, or to stop caring. Yet true detachment is not apathy, it is clarity. It is the ability to engage fully with life, to invest in the present, and to act with awareness without being imprisoned by attachment to outcomes, expectations, or desires. Life is constantly in motion, and the more tightly we cling to specific results or people, the more we create friction, resistance, and suffering. Detachment is the key to flow because it allows life to move naturally, without the distortion created by grasping, fear, or obsession. In detachment, we find freedom, creativity, and a sense of alignment that cannot exist when the mind is consumed by attachment. Attachment arises from fear, the fear of loss, of failure, of being insufficient, or of uncertainty. We attach ourselves to relationships, achievements, possessions, or ideas because we believe they define us, protect us, or validate our worth. Yet this attachment is often an illusion. Nothing in life is permanent. All experiences, all relationships, all circumstances are in constant flux. When we cling, we create tension both within ourselves and in the world around us. Detachment, by contrast, recognizes impermanence. It does not deny love, ambition, or desire, but it tempers them with awareness and understanding. It allows us to engage deeply without being controlled, to care fully without suffocating, and to act intentionally without obsession. The practice of detachment is closely linked to the flow of life. Flow is the state in which action, awareness, and energy move harmoniously. It arises when we are fully present and fully engaged, yet not bound by the need to control every outcome. Resistance and attachment disrupt flow. They create friction, doubt, and tension. When we are attached, we often act from fear, compulsion, or expectation rather than from clarity and intention. We become reactive, caught in cycles of desire and disappointment. Detachment allows energy to move freely, decisions to be made with precision, and action to align with reality rather than imagined outcomes. Detachment is also a path to emotional stability. When we are overly attached to outcomes, we expose ourselves to unnecessary suffering. The mind oscillates between hope and fear, expectation and disappointment, joy and despair. These fluctuations drain energy and cloud judgment. When we detach, we acknowledge the impermanence of circumstances and the limits of control. We no longer allow our happiness, sense of self, or peace to be dictated by external conditions. Instead, we cultivate an inner equilibrium that is resilient to change. Detachment teaches us to meet life with calmness, patience, and discernment even when events unfold unpredictably. Another dimension of detachment is clarity of perception. When we are attached, our judgment is often clouded by desire, fear, or expectation. We see the world not as it is, but as we wish it to be. We interpret events through the lens of personal attachment, distorting reality to match our hopes or fears. Detachment allows us to step back and observe life with clarity and objectivity. We can see the patterns, opportunities, and challenges without being consumed by them. This clarity enhances decision-making, improves relationships, and fosters insight into both ourselves and the world. Detachment also enhances creativity and productivity. When we are overly attached to specific outcomes, our energy becomes rigid and constrained. We may resist alternative solutions, dismiss new possibilities, or act out of fear of failure rather than curiosity and experimentation. In detachment, energy flows more freely. We become more flexible, open to new ideas, and willing to explore different paths. Action becomes more intuitive, inspired, and effective because it is not constrained by obsession or expectation. The mind becomes like a river, moving around obstacles with ease, adapting to circumstances, and discovering the most efficient path forward. Detachment does not mean inaction. It is not about avoiding responsibility, ignoring challenges, or escaping life. On the contrary, it allows us to act from a place of awareness rather than compulsion. When we detach from attachment to outcomes, we can fully invest in the process of life, our work, and our relationships. Our actions become deliberate, precise, and effective because they are guided by understanding rather than fear. We invest energy where it matters, yet we remain flexible and resilient in the face of uncertainty. This balance between engagement and non-attachment is what creates flow, a state in which life seems to unfold naturally, effortlessly, and in harmony. Detachment also deepens relationships. When we are overly attached to others, we often project expectations, control, or dependency onto them. This creates tension, disappointment, and misunderstanding. Detachment allows love, care, and connection to arise without suffocating the other or binding ourselves to outcomes. We can engage fully, support authentically, and remain present without being overwhelmed by fear or need. In this space of freedom, relationships grow naturally with mutual respect, understanding, and genuine connection. Ultimately, detachment is the liberation of the mind from unnecessary constraints. It allows us to move through life with clarity, presence, and alignment. By releasing attachment to outcomes, we release resistance and open the door to flow. Life becomes less about control and more about engagement, less about grasping and more about participating, less about fear and more about wisdom. Detachment is not an escape from life. It is a deeper, more conscious way of inhabiting it, a way to navigate the currents of existence with ease, precision, and harmony. Life has a rhythm, a pulse, and a timing that cannot be forced or hurried. Every moment, every event, every encounter unfolds according to its own cadence, whether we are aware of it or not. Yet, as human beings, we often resist this natural rhythm. We hurry, we push, we demand outcomes according to our own schedules and expectations. We compare our pace to others, measure our success against arbitrary milestones, and grow anxious when life does not move according to our plans. In doing so, we create friction, tension, and disappointment. Trusting in life's rhythm is not about passivity. It is about alignment, patience, and understanding. It is the recognition that there is an underlying order to the way life unfolds, and that by attuning ourselves to it, we can move with ease, clarity, and purpose. One of the first lessons in trusting life's rhythm is understanding impermanence. Everything in life is transient circumstances, emotions, people, and experiences. Joy will pass, challenges will pass, and opportunities will appear and disappear. When we resist this impermanence, we create suffering. We cling to moments that are fleeting, fret over setbacks, and strive against change. By observing that all things have their natural course, we begin to relax our need to control outcomes. We begin to see that life is not a series of random events, but a flow, a continuous unfolding that has its own logic and timing. Trusting this rhythm allows us to participate fully in life without unnecessary struggle or frustration. Patience is central to trusting life's rhythm. The world does not respond to force, and meaningful results rarely arise instantly. Growth, understanding, and transformation take time. Yet in a culture of instant gratification, we forget this truth. We measure progress by immediate results, we become restless when outcomes are delayed, and we judge ourselves harshly when life does not meet our expectations. Trusting life's rhythm requires the willingness to wait, to allow processes to unfold naturally, and to cultivate persistence without pressure. It is a calm and deliberate engagement with life, recognizing that the timing of events is often beyond our comprehension, but rarely without purpose. Another dimension of trusting life's rhythm is embracing uncertainty. We desire predictability, yet life is inherently uncertain. Plans will shift, relationships will change, and unforeseen challenges will arise. Anxiety arises when we resist this uncertainty, when we attempt to impose rigid control over circumstances we cannot dictate. Trusting life's rhythm is the practice of releasing this need for absolute control. It is the courage to move forward even without full knowledge, the faith that life will provide what is needed in its own time, and the willingness to adapt when events unfold differently than anticipated. This trust is not naive optimism. It is grounded awareness, a recognition that life has its own intelligence that operates beyond the limited vision of the mind. Trust in life's rhythm also requires attentiveness. It is not blind faith or passive surrender. It is mindful observation and engagement. By paying attention to subtle signs, patterns, and moments, we can sense the flow of life and act in harmony with it. Nature provides countless lessons in rhythm, the seasons, the tides, the cycles of growth and rest. Life mirrors these patterns, with periods of expansion and contraction, activity and stillness, challenge and ease. When we attune ourselves to these rhythms, we align with the natural pulse of existence, finding that obstacles are navigated more smoothly, decisions are clearer, and energy flows with less resistance. One of the most profound benefits of trusting life's rhythm is the cultivation of inner peace. When we fight against the natural course of events, we generate tension, disappointment, and frustration. We become consumed by the belief that life should conform to our desires rather than recognizing the inherent order in its unfolding. Trusting the rhythm of life allows us to release this tension. We accept that not everything will happen according to our timing, that delays or detours are often necessary, and that setbacks can carry lessons or opportunities hidden from immediate perception. In this space of acceptance, the mind becomes calm, the heart softens, and the spirit finds balance. Trusting life's rhythm also enhances resilience. When unexpected challenges arise, those who resist are thrown off balance, reacting with fear, frustration, or panic. Those who trust are able to adjust, adapt, and flow with the circumstances rather than against them. Resilience is born from this alignment, from the understanding that life's timing is not a personal slight, but a natural unfolding. By trusting rhythm, we learn to move with challenges rather than fight them, to navigate uncertainty with grace, and to cultivate patience without passivity. This trust also deepens gratitude and appreciation. When we accept that life unfolds according to its own timing, we begin to notice the beauty, lessons, and opportunities present in each moment. We stop rushing toward the next goal, the next achievement, or the next outcome, and we begin to engage fully with what is here and now. The rhythm of life carries its own wisdom, revealing patterns, connections, and timing that we could never orchestrate ourselves. Gratitude arises naturally from this recognition as we begin to see that each moment, each event, And each challenge is a part of the greater flow, contributing to growth, understanding, and fulfillment. Ultimately, trusting life's rhythm is a practice of alignment, patience, and presence. It is the art of moving with life rather than resisting it, of acting with awareness rather than force, and of accepting that the unfolding of events carries its own intelligence. By trusting rhythm, we release unnecessary struggle, cultivate clarity, and allow life to work with us rather than against us. It is a practice that brings freedom, balance, and harmony, enabling us to navigate existence with wisdom, composure, and grace,